Welcome to the fourth episode of the ACPM Spotlight Podcast. Quite a special one today. In studio with us, we have Tim White, who is actually a former president of the ACPM. Just immediately, you took over from Tim, isn't it? Yes. So he's the fifth former president of the ACPM from Profica. Profica is one of our corporate members. So today we are interviewing Tim from Profica. He's a Profican with over 84 employees, working in over 30 countries in the continent. So a Profican working in the African continent. Welcome, Tim. I am Nomvula Rakolote. I am the CEO of the ACPM and the co-host. And with me, I have my host, Anthony Afordofe, the current president of the ACPM and also the CEO of Akweni Group, which is also a corporate of the ACPM. Welcome to the former president and the current president.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Thanks, Nomvula.
Yeah, Tim, just as a starter, let me just ask you about, the history of the ACPM. You don't have to go extensively because you were there in the early years. So when you look back, really, how would you describe the significance, of the ACPM during its early years since its establishment, and how would you describe its significance currently?
Well, I wasn't there in the early years.
Yes.
I think it was founded in about 1998.
Yes.
I joined the ACPM shortly after founding Profica in 2005, so 2005, 2006. Mm-hmm. I joined ACPM, and at that stage, the council, the SACP-CMP, hadn't really been formed and wasn't up and running. Mm. So the ACPM was the defining body for construction project management in South Africa, certainly. I mean, I think it was instrumental in formalizing and taking what was a bit of a loose industry and formalizing that and professionalizing it with a code of ethics, standards and procedures that I suppose the layperson in the industry could actually understand, what am I getting if I go and employ a construction project manager?
Yeah. Mm.
And I think we mustn't forget, in those days you couldn't study construction project management. So
yes,
as well, everyone coming out of university, they were engineers, architects, QSs, etc. So it was what is this profession, and how do we take it forward in those early years? And I think the ACPM was instrumental in defining that and trying to shape the scope of services and the profession from that perspective. I then joined the EXCO in 2008. Mm-hmm. So I had 13 years on the EXCO, and I've seen the ACPM obviously morph during that time quite a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the council came in and a bit stronger and started legislating what we do in terms of construction project management, and the ACPM had to evolve into, okay, what do we do now? So we set the standards, we defined what it's all about. Now what do we do? And I think the significance still with the ACPM is around looking after its members and making sure that the guys out there in the industry that are practicing as construction project managers are looked after. Yes. What's important to the individuals, what's important to the corporates in the industry, and that we don't lose sight of that, certainly. So I still maintain that it's extremely significant these days.
And you also played quite a significant role. I remember when we were doing the recognition of the presidents, your category was actually for reigniting the ACPM. That was the theme, at the time, just before you handed over to Anthony.
All right, Tim. ACPM presidency. I think you were there for a number of years. Just give us a little bit on the contributions that you think you made as the president of the ACPM at your tenure.
Well, Ant, I mean, I obviously know both of you quite well. And I don't want to.
You appointed me for starters.
Exactly. Well, that's probably the best thing I did. But it is the best thing, without a doubt. So I don't want to blow my own trumpet in this regard. I mean, you'll know better what I did and didn't do as the president. But I did 2 stints just before you took over, Anthony. And I think The one thing that was certainly that we did change was taking what was an executive committee of volunteers. We all had our day jobs, we all had our own businesses, we were all involved in the industry, working day and night, weekends, etc. And we were trying to give of our time to the executive committee and try and control the ACPM. And I think the big decision there was to bring in somebody who was dedicated, like yourself, Nomvula, who was in the industry, knew the built environment, had connections with council and the other voluntary associations, and was able to sort of formalize the ACPM and come in as the CEO and really put some strategy behind it and to drive all the volunteers in a certain direction. So that, without a doubt, I think looking now, back 5 years, you're still here, and the ACPM still
and
going
happy
strong.
and very happy.
Good. So then it worked.
Okay.
I think, Tim, having said that, I think there's always a point to take. I think you stepped aside and you went to take on your own missions, and I took over. And at the time that I took over, it was also in a bit of a lull position. Nomvula came in. We're trying to find our feet. What do we do? Where do we go? But we took definitely the challenge on as president and CEO. So what advice then would you give the current president, so from president to president, in terms of what we can do better? And also let us know what you think we're doing well as the current leadership of the ACPM.
Well, I think firstly we mustn't forget when you did take over was around that COVID time as well. So you've gone through a very difficult period over that time, in terms of just people not working, not paying fees, perhaps not joining the organisation, the association. So that's been quite tricky. But I think more and more we're seeing the challenges. I mean, we're seeing the scope of services of construction project managers grow. Yeah. We're seeing the challenges in the industry that we need to deal with as project managers, as project leaders on projects. And I think more and more our association needs to still be evolving and looking after our profession as such. And I think a lot of the practicing CPMs out there don't actually realize what the ACPM does. So I think more than anything, and we know this because we've discussed it previously. Yeah. We need to be marketing to the industry and to the members to say this is actually how we're looking after your interests, and come and join the party and be part of the change process and look after your own industry. I think that would be the one takeaway.
Okay.
I'm glad you are raising that because, in as much as there's the marketing, we also need to create that awareness, that understanding. And the podcast, is one of those. In as much as it adds value, to the corporate members and the ACPM, but we are also looking at it as building those that must still enter the industry. Absolutely. Look, there are those, especially students, the young ones, who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity, to have a conversation with yourself, but through this podcast, we feel that is also part of it, but also to educate South Africa as a whole, including our public sector, on what the construction project manager does. With that said, Tim, you said, Profica was established around 2005. I'm quite interested, as the chief Profican, can you just give us some insights, into Profica, how it has evolved? I mean, what we are seeing today, we're seeing over 84 staff members operating in over 30 countries. I think with offices in about almost over 10 countries, physical offices. Can you just give us, insights into Profica? We're not saying share company secrets, but, what has brought about this success? Just give us some insight into the development, of Profica.
No, I'd love to, and I think it's always nice to look back and reflect a little bit as well, And so I was one of 4 partners that put Profica together and founded Profica in early 2005, and it was really a collaboration of 4 individuals. Myself and 2 colleagues and friends of mine had studied civil engineering at UCT. The 3 of us had worked on construction sites in Hong Kong and in London and East Africa, and we combined. That was Brent Harris and Shayla Thiel. And we combined with Nyameko Magongo, who's actually a part of the ACPM Exco at this present moment, which is great. And we set up the business from there in 2005. And looking back, 2005 was an interesting time in the industry. We were working towards the Soccer World Cup in 2010. It was boom times. The industry was booming. It was pre the subprime crisis and all of that. And I think when we started, we were like these four young guys talking about what we had put together with no track record. And I think a lot of our clients took one look at us and said, okay, well, we'll throw these guys a bone and see what happens. And we managed to deliver.
Yeah.
And a lot of those early clients are actually still clients of ours. 19 and a half years down the line. And I think it was interesting to see, a lot of the big established project management companies at the time were doing the big infrastructure work, so the stadiums and the infrastructure work. And the smaller projects for the listed sector and the private developers, they sort of left behind. And we picked up the scraps, if you like. But doing the tough projects and the small ones, and it creates relationships and trust with your clients. And so we developed from there, and we actually came out of it in a very good place off the back of that. And then the progression from South Africa into the rest of Africa was quite interesting. We did some work for global clients in South Africa in those early years, 2008, 2009. And then they would have, a project in Senegal, for example. And we were young and pioneering, and we wanted to go and try new things. So we would put up our hands and say, we're going to Senegal, we're going to do the project for you. And we had the existing relationship. And that's how we grew our business onto the rest of the continent. So we were lucky. And in fact, when, after the World Cup in 2010, things slowed down a little bit in South Africa, and we already had a little bit of a footprint in West Africa and East Africa at the time. So we were able to then pivot a little bit and put some of our resources into managing those projects and developing the business from there.
Just a follow-up, 2005, 2024, when you look at it, I'm just interested in hearing from you to say, what does it take from you, as a leader? What is that secret ingredient that you have to make it work? Because I mean, I don't know how else to ask it, because you look at the period, you look at the success, you look at the number of projects that have been done. We have not even gone through the value. And here you are as the chief person in charge. That talks a lot about the kind of leader you are, or the leadership skills. What do you think it takes?
Well, firstly, chief leader in charge is not something that I would put against my name.
Yes.
I like to think of myself more as a servant leader in terms of helping my people actually achieve their objectives and seeing how they go. But we always say the business is founded on our people. That's our foundation. And we've been very blessed, and I'm very grateful that over the years we've managed to attract the right talent, grow the right talent, and develop the business from there, which has been amazing. So, it is a fairly sized business, and it's not one person that leads the business. There are leaders throughout our business at various levels that are all doing their own or adding value to the business as we go. We always say, Profica is about having the right people under one umbrella, working together. That's the secret ingredient.
They say where the head is leading right, then good things happen. So servant leadership, quite a good quality. It makes sense.
Tim, servant leadership.
You want to go further?
Come on, hit me, Anthony.
I need to hit him, because I know some of his guys, and they said, Tim can be hard sometimes.
But it doesn't mean when you're a servant leader, you shouldn't step up when things need to be done.
I know, I'm just pulling his leg.
No, look, businesses as well, and you'll know this. Businesses are moving things.
Yes,
they're fluid. And at different times, they require a different type
of
leadership and
strategy all the
engagement.
time. Yes. So following up on that, I mean, to create what we call a living legacy, because what you've done is still a living legacy. We don't want to talk about this at some point where things have gone awry or you are no longer there. You're still there. The company is still fluid. So we're calling it a living legacy that you've created in the project management field. A bit of insight into, you've mentioned some of them in terms of how you had the international clients leading you into certain African areas. But there's a question I want to ask there in terms of there their landscape and the way they do things is somewhat different from how we do it here in South Africa. So just insight in terms of the people listening, some of the strategies and the difficulties that you faced working across the African countries.
Yeah, so lots of lessons learned, that's for sure. I often say, one of the most interesting things is we did a strategy session as far back as 2008, and I remember I've still got the slide just to keep it there for me as a reminder. And we had Nigeria. It's not for us. And now our second biggest office outside Johannesburg is in Nigeria, and we've been on the ground there for 12 years. We've got an amazing team on the ground. So one thing from a strategy point of view is that don't define too much of a strategy, because things change.
Yes.
Things are volatile. We live in a VUCA world. We need to have the right people with the right attitude and the willingness to do new things. And of course the agility, because you need to move and pivot very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's been where we've learned lessons, and we've tried not to be too defined about where we're going and what we're doing, but to more have the right people with us, right people on the bus, and then wherever the bus goes, it doesn't really matter because you've got the right people with you.
Absolutely.
That's the essence of it,
that is really key, and that is a challenge for a lot of companies to keep that going, the right people in the bus, because obviously there's a lot of detours. People get off the bus. A lot of the time you need to fill up the bus again and keep those new people in momentum with the old people. So there's a lot of cohesion strategies that you also need to put together. But I think in saying that, our industry is evolving, our built environment industry, whether here in South Africa or across Africa. What changes would you say you've seen or experienced along the way, both here in South Africa and the countries that you're working in outside of South Africa? What industry changes are you picking up as you go along?
Sure. I mean, that's there's a lot of items to talk about there. I think but let's focus on construction project management and I suppose the scope of service. If we looked at, I mean, we like to call ourselves project leaders as opposed to project managers, because what we're out there doing is adding value to the projects and leading project teams that aren't part of our organization. They're part of different organizations.
Exactly.
And every project, you've got to reignite that teamwork and get the team working. And 12 months later or 24 months later, you all say cheers to each other and you move on. It's quite a difficult approach. But the one thing I have seen certainly that's changed is the number of people sitting around the table.
Yeah.
So perhaps 20 years ago, you had an architect, a civil structural engineer, an MEP engineer, a QS, a client, and a project manager. Now we've got a whole lot of myriad of different disciplines. We're dealing with green and sustainability consultants. We're dealing with health and safety requirements and what's required there. We've got ESG requirements that our clients need to adhere to. So there's aspects of that. There's different funding partners. So there's you've got developers and then the funding partners and the duty of care that the teams need to provide. So I think what the complexity of what we deal with has definitely got bigger and it's got more complex.
Yeah.
And we always say to our guys, well, let's own the complexity, let's understand it and take it on and take it forward from there, because that our responsibility on projects has certainly evolved, most definitely. And then I think the different regions, it depends where you're at as to and what sector you're in, and also how your client is made up as to the level of sophistication of particular projects and the level of sophistication of contractors. So you often don't get, in some areas, a tier 1 contractor, an international standard tier 1 contractor. You're dealing with a tier 3 contractor who perhaps needs assistance, more hands-on assistance, whether it's in programming, procurement management, and that sort of thing. And again, I think what we end up doing is a little bit more construction management on those projects, where we're really getting involved in the detail and understanding what is the contractor doing and how we can assist the contractor to get across the line. Yeah. And that's the important thing. So, I think, our scope used to be in a box. I think we're getting pushed both sides. We're getting pushed to take on more pre-development scope of work, and more development management in terms of how do we get the land enabled, how do we help our clients with their fundraising and the feasibilities and getting the project set up for success.
Yes.
Then it's the design and construction management. And then on the construction end, like how do we actually get hands-on deliver the projects.
Okay.
So it's an interesting space at the moment.
Interesting. I remember even the CIC that we did, we were talking about the evolving scope of services when it comes to the construction project manager, something that we are still actually even busy exploring to say, does the current scope of services talk to what is really happening, practically on the ground? And if that is not the case, how far can it really be modified if there's a need? But
Yeah. No, I think that's a very important point that you're raising in terms of scope of services, the idea of works, the old idea of works. With what Tim is saying as well, I think there's a important lesson to learn there in terms of the number of people around the table. I think that's a fact. It's not a joke, because you have to deal with all those
including all
disciplines.
other external stakeholders. There's
Exactly.
now even social facilitation and all
Exactly.
of that.
So there's a lot of people that you need to manage, but we're still sitting probably in South Africa with the same tariff of fees, same idea of works, which is not considerate to the current dispensation, right? And you're finding the same thing also outside of the country, which is even worse, from different political landscapes to the other, where a lot of decisions are thrown to you as a project manager to manage. Specifically, if you go to Nigeria, Ghana, the way they do things there is slightly different from how we approach it down there. So there is definitely a key learning to take here in terms of the ACPM spearheading the issue around the idea of works and the tariff of fees, and making sure we can actually update that to suit the current dispensation. I think it's still work that we need to do together with the ACCP and the CBE, if we can bring
as much
them
as
to
we
the
understand
party.
you keep the core, but how do you look into the
Because
variations?
it affects issues of fees,
Yes.
because you're working overtime to get the project in place, managing. I think around the table we're having more than 20 people around the table at each meeting, whether it's a design meeting or a site meeting or whatever the case may be. And you have to document what everybody is doing and make sure the deliverables are done, which is not currently with the services or scope of services and fees aligned to that. Yes, Tim, you wanted to come
I
in
think
there.
it also depends, where the projects are located. So, for
Yes.
example, if the projects are located in particularly remote areas, you find that on-site construction project manager actually becomes the conduit for the rest of the team.
Yeah.
So, the architect wants a query, the project manager's out there taking photographs, engaging,
Yes.
very, very hands-on. And that, I like that actually, because then we're adding lots of value as project managers on the ground as well. And being proactive and pulling the team together and really facilitating the whole project team to get the project delivered successfully, which is good. But then the other aspect is also just how you set up those projects. Are they traditional? Are they design and build?
Yes.
Is it construction management where you're managing packages?
Yeah.
Is it EPC?
Yes.
And this whole I suppose understanding or perception that, don't worry, it's EPC, we can hand the risk across to the contractor. And in our environment in the African continent, contractors don't have that skill and expertise. So they're bringing it in-house or they're bringing it externally. And then they've got to manage an external team, at the same time, which also has its complexities.
Exactly.
So it's really about just thinking about how to set up the project for success and tailor-making those solutions. There's no cookie cutters. It's got to be tailor-made. Look at the solution. How best do we put the projects together?
It brings me to the next question, Tim, in terms of the learnings that shape the approach towards project management, because we've got different techniques or styles of contracting. Whether you're in the public sector space or whether in the private sector space, there are certain contracts that the client wants to utilize to manage certain projects. So are we advising the client well for the type of contract versus the type of project? Because it then affects the delivery processes as well and how you manage the process. So on the private sector side, Tim, if you can speak to that a little bit, because I think you've sort of migrated towards that end. I know you used to work in the public sector a bit as well, but I think you are more focused on the private sector now. What sort of the contracts are you seeing that is coming through from the client side that you are using out there?
Sure, and it's horses for courses. I think it's so different. We operate across 11 different sectors.
Yeah.
And obviously, we've got offices in 15 with permanent teams on the ground in 15 different countries. So
Wow.
we see a lot of different ways of doing things. So, for example, the healthcare sector has specific requirements in terms of how they engage with their consultants and how they take things forward. If we look at I suppose a good example would be data centers. We're doing a couple of data center projects, fairly new, if I can call it that, maybe the last 5 years, really an industry that's taken off in Africa specifically. And we're working on in a couple of different countries on the basis of that. But so there, initially clients would start off going, well, design and build. We'll give it to a contractor. We have one single point of contact. We know that it's a guaranteed maximum price and the risk is transferred, or the perception that the risk is transferred. But if you look at that, a data center spend is, say, 30% building works and 70% more specialist equipment, mechanical, electrical, plant, et cetera. So now you're putting the responsibility of that full spend in the hands of a contractor who's only interested in 30% of it. Yeah. Which you see the problem. I mean, that's where there's a challenge. Yeah. So you've also got very hands-on developers who have got direct relationships with suppliers, plant and equipment suppliers, as an example as well. Yeah. So we're starting to see a bit of a hybrid there, where the clients are ordering their equipment up front directly. Then it's a free issue to the contractor. Okay. And we're looking at trying to solution different ways of doing that, whether it's by packages. In other words, a building works package, and get the CSA package out, do the MEP package separately, et cetera, because it makes more sense from that perspective. And you put the right responsibilities in the right areas. So I think we're seeing quite a lot of that change. Okay. Certainly, you've got it similarly in the industrial and logistics space with the cold storage solutions versus warehousing. There's a lot of specialization taking place, I think. Which requires a little bit of a different view on things and where to bring in that specialization. Whether it's international contractors doing a particular, let's say, the flooring for a logistics warehouse that has a high spec, and you can't find that locally in country. You've got to bring that in. How does that get brought in? And how do you put that together? Yeah. So that's what we're finding, is we've got to solution that up front and plan the project sufficiently up front.
All right. I think we're talking a lot. I'm sure the public out there want to sort of see who this Profica is. So I think it's time to have a look at some of the work that Profica has done, so that the public can view it with us. So we can take a moment to have a look at that.
did talk, from a leadership point of view to say, your stance in as much as, different situations will require different leadership approaches. Is servant leadership, there's quite a lot that has been done. I don't have words for it. But can you just share with us, what would you say is the winning philosophy of Profica with that impressive portfolio over so many sectors? What is the winning philosophy?
Well, the end product always looks good, right? But sometimes you don't get it right all the time. But certainly we are, I think first, we are a Pan-African business. The word Profica actually comes from Professional Project Management Africa.
All right.
And that's what we set up 19 and a half years ago, almost 20 years ago.
Oh, lovely.
It was around taking professional project management into the African continent and taking it forward from there. So, if I look, literally, we've got offices in Cape Town and Casablanca, and if I look at those two teams, they've actually doubled in size, and those businesses are going strong, literally from the top of Africa to the bottom of Africa. So we really are a Pan-African business. But at the same time, we like to say that it's not really what we do out there and our experts in each and every one of the sectors and each and every one of the regions that we operate in. But what differentiates us is what happens in between that goes unrivaled. In other words, how do we collaborate? How do we work together? How do we deliver the projects? We work really, really hard in making sure that our team of Proficans are one Profica, and we operate with the same style of business operations, even though we come from a lot of different cultures and regions on the continent, is that we operate in a particular manner. And that helps us deliver multiple projects for clients. So often we've got one client that we're delivering 4 or 5 projects for in 4 or 5 different countries. And they need to see the same level of expertise, the same systems and processes, the same proactive approach to managing our projects. And we work really hard at that internally, knowledge sharing. But again, it goes back to the people. Are they willing? Do they have the right attitude? Are they willing to collaborate and be approachable to their colleagues, to actually share knowledge and work together? And we've got, for example, account managers sitting in Kenya that are doing projects in Cameroon. And we've got account managers sitting in Nigeria that are doing projects in Senegal. So, that collaboration across the continent is really, really important for us. But it's about tailoring our solutions for our clients. And that's the essence of it. What do our clients need? And over the years, it changes. Sometimes you've got to relook at it and go, okay, well, maybe they don't need that. They need another solution. And how do we pivot to that? How do we change our approach to make sure that our clients' needs are met, which is very important.
Interesting, because I was actually going to ask you to tell us more about your internal stuff, which you've actually touched upon, quite through most of the answers that you've been providing. Meaning Profica is quite people-centered, so I would not go far. I wouldn't go further on that question. And you did touch again, on the issue of clients. We know that when it comes to clients challenges, not a lot of people have repeat clients. But what would you really say helps you maintain the clients that you have? You did touch quite a bit on it, but do you mind to expand?
Yeah, it's we don't often get it right. We don't always get it right. And I think the essence of of the industry that we're in is that there's a lot of grey area. It's not black and white. I often say that construction projects go wrong. They do, and it's how you react to when things are challenging and when they've gone wrong is really important. How do you deal with that? How do you react to that? How do you take that on? And in the manner of how you operate is really, very important. And you need to have a strong relationship with your client. You need to have that chemistry where you can have a discussion in an open and transparent fashion. And we always say you've got to tell it like it is. Tell it like it is right from the start. Set the scene and really develop a partnership relationship. And not just the clients, it's the project teams. Ultimately, it's a project team that makes that project successful. So it's really about fostering that teamwork with the whole project team and taking it across the line. But also do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Earn that trust. Because if you don't, then you lose the trust and you lose the relationship. So that's really important.
You say it's so easy, but not everything really sounds that easy as I'm listening to you. and even the acknowledgements to say sometimes things will go wrong. I'm just thinking now, for a young professional that's out there that still needs to enter the industry, they must understand that it's not that easy. It takes quite a lot, and I do hope that they really get that point, and learn directly from people that they would otherwise not have engaged because of not being, within your establishment or working for Profica. But another thing, I think, let me go back to the team. I love your team. You've got this young, vibrant team. You know them, Anthony. When it's Excellence Awards, you can just hear the Proficans, are in-house. And usually there's sometimes, those challenges to say, how do we really equip the current generation, given their own approach and how they see the things. And you've got a lot of youngsters. You've actually even taken from the student chapter of the ACPM. Can you just, give us some insight into that, how that working is with the youngsters? Because you've got quite a lot.
Yeah, I think it comes from the essence of our core purpose as a business is turning our clients' visions into reality with the best talent from diverse cultures. And the best talent is what it's about. And it's not necessarily the people that are top of their class. It's not necessarily the hardest workers. It's a combination of all of those things. Attitude, willingness, engagement, personality. And I'm really, really grateful that we're able to attract the right talent. I think that's really important, is to get the right talent and get the right people that are willing to learn and willing to take things forward with the business. But as youngsters out there, it is an interesting industry. I always say to our team, we're in two industries. Our clients are in the property industry, and they like doing feasibilities and raising funding, and it's like suit and tie stuff. And we're out there delivering construction projects where you're getting your boots dirty and you're having to engage, and it's quite tricky to find the type of individuals that can handle that complexity. And it doesn't come. You don't come straight out of university with that.
It also takes training.
It does. It takes training and exposure. And I think our graduate programs and our training and development spend in terms of making sure that we've got the mentorship programs, but also the internal knowledge sharing, because we are always learning and we are always learning lessons, and we need to share that knowledge and make sure that the young guys that have got a couple of years experience have got the best exposure they can possibly get.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right. I think that's good. Work always in progress in that arena. The challenges are also there, even though we haven't spoken about some of them in that specific topic. But I think the aim is to endeavor to, get it right, ultimately. In terms of the future, Tim, we always talk about the future vision. You've done South Africa, you've done Southern Africa, now you're across Africa. What is the future vision for Profica's project management?
I don't want to give too much away. No, it's really
just a glimpse.
It's really not that complicated. It's really not that complicated. Again, I think it's about, and I mentioned it earlier, it's about understanding what our clients' requirements are.
Okay.
And it's about making sure that we can follow our clients. So there's different philosophies, and different businesses and different industries they might focus on sector. In other words, industry. We're going to focus on healthcare, or we're going to focus on commercial property. It might be that you're focusing on a region. And we did that. 4 or 5 years ago, we focused on regions. We said, okay, Nigeria, we've got a strong office. We're going to focus on delivering for that market in particular. But actually, we have adjusted slightly in the last year to 18 months to say we're going to focus on our clients. And so who are our clients? Where are they going? Where are they growing? And where do we need to capacitate ourselves to be able to meet their needs?
Yeah.
And that's the essence of where we're focusing.
Okay.
So, I think that's where we're at. I think the challenge of delivering what we deliver anywhere in the world, but certainly our focus is the African continent, is to make sure that you've got that combination of international experience and you're constantly learning and doing the best that you can do globally. And I think our consultants in the industry do that. I think we're doing some amazing stuff, architects and engineers, and how we've adopted Autodesk and BIM 360 and the modeling that we're doing, and all of that has been amazing. And it's world class, it really is. And then twinning that with the local knowledge to deliver how you lay a brick in Abidjan, for example, and it's the same way that you've laid a brick for the last 100 years, you know.
Yeah.
And how do you bring those two together, and how do you combine that expertise to deliver a project? That's what we've got to try and solve. We're progressing. We haven't got the winning formula as yet. It's a bit of trial and error, but that's the plan.
Okay.
Let me put you on the spot. You've
Nomvula.
said quite a lot.
Don't go off script.
No, no, I have to put you on the spot on this one. Hearing more about, how you work and the team and so on. Because, Profica has been winning several ACPM Excellence Awards. And for all of those winnings, it has never been you speaking. It will be the project manager, leading that project. And we can hear what they're saying. Now, when I'm putting you on the spot, specifically, I'm thinking last year, you scooped 2 awards, both national and international. Now, as the CEO, you tell me, how do you feel about that? How does it make you feel? We've never had the opportunity to ask you because it's always the project managers that were in charge. So now I want to hear it from you.
Sure. So, firstly, I want to say it's not always about the awards. I think it's about the client satisfaction. It's about the project team satisfaction at the end of the project and how you got there. It's very important, not what the results are, but how you actually got there, as well as obviously making sure that the project's successful. But to win the awards is obviously a good recognition for our guys that are out there doing the hard work and the hard graft. So we really appreciate that. And I'm so grateful that there's a platform where we can actually put our projects forward for awards. And it's good recognition for our team. Because I'm often bad at giving them recognition. So it's nice that they get external recognition outside of the team.
Yeah, but for us as well, it's quite different, let me say even specifically for me, to pass a building and you actually know that this was done by one of our corporates. I mean, before I even joined the construction industry, I always would admire buildings. And, most of the buildings, I would say to Anthony, is like it was not started from scratch. It's like somebody just put it there, like this glass. But to actually walk around, especially around Sandton, there's so many buildings that I can point out which of our corporate did it. So in as much as it's working for your internal team, I mean, for us as well, it's quite interesting, and I would always even tell my children, that building is that corporate member, that one is that corporate member. And so now they also end up, being on the lookout. Because I'm laughing, Anthony, now this other day, just down our street, my son comes and say, hey, have you seen Tim is here in Klapan? I said, Tim is here. What do you mean? Then he says, no, man, I mean, they are building here down the road. But he goes like, Tim is here. And I'm thinking that he's so Tim. So it's quite interesting, And that is one of the things that we would like to do even as a ACPM, to educate South Africa, to say, what? These beautiful buildings you are seeing, this work that has been done, is expertise that are right here in
Absolutely.
South Africa, right here.
Absolutely.
To still be sitting and hearing that there's a shortage of skills in public sector. These things are right here. So that is why we are also working to see how do we strengthen those relationships, to have people like yourselves to help in building that capacity. But
Nomvula, it is so fulfilling. I mean, I guess that's why we do what we do, right?
It's
because there's
fulfilling.
something at the end of it that you can actually point to
do
and say,
you always look
I
back
was
when
involved.
you pass a building? Do you look at it twice all the time?
Absolutely.
Most of the time.
But everyone's got a story as well. And that's the other thing.
Don't you look
Everyone
and
has
think,
a
I
story.
should have done this, that, or you always pass and be satisfied and said,
Oh, there's always a story, there's a team, there's a relationship, there's always something that you take away
Do you
from
go back to those buildings actually, you with Anthony as well?
No,
just for a visit. Do you go back?
You do not you take a specific drive to it, but as you pass it, as Tim is saying, I mean, to create something out of nothing, it's always fascinating. And I think that's what a lot of people outside the built environment don't understand. Because I always say what we do is for the benefit of people.
Yeah.
So that's what satisfies you, that you've done something that has been consumed by humans, whether it's a mall, whether it's an office, whether it's a house. At the end of the day, people are benefiting and enjoying that product because of the stresses that we have gone through to make that happen for them. So it's extremely rewarding. Besides the issue of the financial gains that come out of it. But I think as a person.
It
I'll
gives that
speak for
individual
myself.
fulfillment.
It gives that fulfillment. And I think the teams feel the same way as well. When they pass those buildings, they say, you know what, I spent days and years getting up to go to the site to make and manage this project to become fruitful. So I think any consulting firm will really appreciate
As we
that.
say,
Yeah.
Tim, the stories behind it, you know,
Always.
and we see the finished product. Okay, my question again would then be, you know, I'm just thinking now about the young professional that is listening. And most of the time, there's usually a gap between academia and real practical work within the industry. There is that gap. So what advice would you give, you know, to the young professionals entering the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, in this day and age, everyone wants to climb that corporate ladder as quickly as possible. And certainly in our industry, when you're striving to be a construction project manager, a consultant, you need to understand what it's like on the other side of the fence, what it's like on site, and get that construction knowledge. And I think it's imperative that you actually get onto site and that you actually understand how construction projects evolve and how they run and the challenges that are faced on site. And often the guys don't want to, you know, they come out of university not necessarily wanting to get their boots dirty initially. I had it. I had lawyers and doctors and things that I qualified with at UCT that were, you know, suit and tie, working in an office, driving nice cars initially, and I was on site getting my boots dirty. But I would advocate that it's important to not jump the steps. Because it will catch you out later on down the line. You might do 3 or 4 years of good career acceleration, and then you're going to get stuck somewhere because you don't have that knowledge. So do the hard graft, put in the yards on site, understand how projects get delivered, and you'll do perhaps one step back to go 10 forward in the future. You'll really accelerate your career by having that knowledge at an early stage of your career.
So there's quite a process as well that they must take recognition of that.
I think so.
All right, Tim, I think with every good thing that Profica is doing, we think about sustainability of that good thing, which is what I'm sure sits on your mind most of the time, that should Tim decide to go and sit at Bali for the rest of his life, what will happen to Profica? What is the succession planning strategies that you have in place to keep this good thing going beyond yourself and beyond the current team? Because we wouldn't want to see the brand dwindle at some point should you decide to step down. So I think the question really is succession planning and the strategy you've got into place to have that done.
Well, thankfully, the business is very successful today because of the people that are in the business, not because of me.
Yeah.
And to be honest, if I look back at the sort of makeup of our team and how that's delivered, our executive committee members on average are close to 10 years that they've been with the business. So that creates really good, stable platform. And each and every one of those directors manages their own teams, their own profit and loss centers, their own little, let's call it mini businesses in a way.
Yes.
So all of them collaborate with each other for the greater business and the one Profica. But certainly that carries on and continues.
Yeah.
We work really hard in terms of making sure, as I said earlier, we're getting the right talent into the business, and that there is at different levels of the industry that we've got people 2 years experience, 4 years experience, all the way up to some of our really experienced guys that have been around the block. We call them our bomb squad. Some of the senior guys that are close to retirement that can come in and take all of those years of experience and provide advice to the young guys coming through. And that we find that works quite nicely. It's quite a good combination of things to train the guys up. And then certainly we have a deliberate plan in terms of how we take our succession planning forward. And you can imagine, again, it's not just about head office here in Joburg, it's about all the different regions and how we look at that. and how we develop people in terms of the training and development. I think one of the big things is around exposing individuals to different parts of the industry. So as I said earlier, we work across 11 different sectors. So it's quite easy for one person to just focus on one sector and become an expert.
Yes.
But then they're not necessarily growing as managers in the industry.
Yes.
So we've got to be quite deliberate about saying, and it's tough as a business, we've got to be quite deliberate about saying, no, that person from a career pathing point of view actually needs to go and get exposure to something else. And in a way, they almost start again, gaining that knowledge, growing that a new client relationship, and all of that. But we try and do that as best we can. Obviously, still trying to manage all of the projects and all of our clients all at the same time. So we have a plan, and it's really about, I suppose, accelerating the careers of all our people in our organization, giving the most opportunity for them to grow and develop, and also for our business to grow. Because if our business is not growing, then our individuals have nowhere to go. So it's important that we grow the business, that everybody can grow with us. And we want to keep everybody together in the same team. I always hate it when somebody moves on. I understand it, but I always hate it because it's always, it's such a personal thing because we're growing this team and we're taking things together. It's nice when they come back. We have a return policy. So it's nice when they sometimes come back and join us again. And I think the main thing for me is just so grateful that, that we've had the opportunity to work together with people in the industry, and that by and large, we still have good relationships out there in the industry with everybody that's come across our paths at some stage.
Great.
Yeah. No, that's great stuff. I think it brings me to the next question, because I think you're already touching a little bit on it, because we run around and do all this, and sometimes we leave the purpose behind. There's a bigger cause for what we do. And I think that's the question I want to ask you personally as Tim. What is that purpose that you think you're bringing to the industry, bigger than just delivering the project? And also, as for Profica as a whole, what that purpose is? If you can elaborate on that for us.
Well, you actually touched on it a little bit earlier around what we do in our industry as managing projects. And our founding mission, just under 20 years ago, was to create a sustainable and high quality environments for people at work, home and play. And that's ultimately what we're doing, is good quality, sustainable environments. And I think that still rings true 20 years down the line, that's still very much what we want to try and achieve. And you do leave a legacy by doing that. You can point out the buildings to your grandchildren and say, there it is. And was it high quality, and was it sustainable? Was it done the right way? And that's really important from that perspective. There are obviously the other aspects. I mean, we've recently adopted an ESG policy ourselves as a business, which is work in progress, but we're wanting to make sure that we, as part of our process and procedure, as we're giving back, we're making sure that we're giving back. Obviously, in the South African context, training and development and transformation is huge. I'm very pleased to say that we're almost at 50-50 male-female split across the 80-odd people that we've got. And that's something that I'm really proud of to this day, that particularly in the construction industry. It's a hard industry, and to have a lot of female built environment professionals out there doing their thing is amazing. And again, I'm grateful that we've managed to attract those type of individuals and that talent to our business. And then I suppose, personally, I still love what I'm doing, and that's important. People always talk about this work-life balance, and for me, it almost sounds like they're on different sides of the scale, but they're not. It's the same thing. They're intertwined. And really, if you enjoy what you're doing, and it's not this work-life balance, one on the other side, it must be work and life are intertwined, and they must be intertwined.
Because you're doing what you love.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you're working on what you're passionate about. So that's why it can never be on two different sides.
Right. So one more question from my side, which is not on the script. And you're going to take it.
I'm going to decline to answer.
It's motivated by the insights that you are sharing.
Tim, let's be open and talk about this one.
Here we go.
The way it's starting.
Here we go.
You know, there is a lot of people aspiring to grow a Profica, for example, out there. Come into the industry, they work a little bit, they see, wow, okay, I can do this for myself, and they want to go out there and do it for themselves. What advice would you give to such a group? Because I've seen over time that there are those who will work for a business. There are those who will come in who've got entrepreneurship ambitions. There are those who are touch and go. They're not really sure what they want to do. But the ones who are gearing towards the entrepreneurship direction, what advice would you give in terms of the journey you have taken so far? Because I think a lot of them think it's an overnight step into success. So what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs?
Sure, that really is off script. Look, I think there's a lot of things. It's not just one catch-all phrase. Certainly, I think. But one of the big things would just be keep going. You know, have confidence. It's tough. It really is sometimes. I mean, yes, Profica is doing well at the moment. We still work in progress. We're wanting to do better, and we're wanting to grow and be and provide a better service than we are at the moment, and evolve and innovate with the industry. There are other businesses that I started as an entrepreneur that didn't work, that failed. And it's sometimes you learn more from the failures than you do from the successes. And so don't be, I guess the takeaway as well, one of the things is don't be put off by your failures. Learn from them, take them forward, make decisions quickly, fail fast, learn from it and go and push forward. And that resilience is important. And get a team around you that you can confide in. What's the saying? No man is an island. You know, you need to have a team that you can talk to, that you can bounce ideas with, that you can celebrate with, that you can cry with, that you can, you know, really grow things together with. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah. No, great stuff. Because Nomvula, I think the industry, you know, when we do this kind of things, we always talk about the successes.
Yeah.
But I'm also one who wants to talk about where it didn't go that well, because so that people coming behind us can sort of find better routes in doing certain things, so that we don't all cry all the time. So we need to have that education to say there's bumpy roads here and there. You need to watch out for them so that you don't end up in the same pit, because some people don't get out of the pit. They stay there. They get wounded, they stay there, and then the journey ends. So the appreciation is to talk also about the not so exciting parts, the failures. Tim is right.
To say it's never in black and white.
It's never in black and white. There's so many things one is doing on the side that haven't gotten off, but this one did.
Yeah.
And you're pushing that one, you know. So
just don't make the same mistake twice. That's the one rule. Make it once and move on.
Make it once and move on. So I just hope that off the cuff question helped the viewers out there. In saying that, Tim, I don't know whether you have any other further questions that you want to ask.
Fine.
Okay, we could go on and on and on, but I think our time is done. Thank you so much, Tim, for taking the time to come and sit with us and have these chats. We believe these chats will help a lot of people out there. We promote the corporate, but I think there's also a lot of educational aspect to what we're doing to the members, our own members and people outside, because we've got this on YouTube and Facebook platforms. So that videos are going on around. So I think for you to take your time out of your busy schedule to come and share your knowledge and your experiences with us, we really appreciate it, and we want to thank Profica and the Proficans across Africa and across Europe and across the United States, wherever else you're working.
I wish.
Thank you very much for letting Tim come to share his insight with us. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And I can hear the
thanks.
young Proficans shouting.
No, thank you, Anthony, and thanks, Nomvula. I think the work that you guys do at the ACPM is so important. Keep it going. Keep pushing the ACPM brand out there, exposure, capturing the young people coming through into our industry as well. We need people to come into our industry, good talent to come into our industry and continue to grow. So you're doing a great job, and thanks for what you guys do as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we close off again by looking what Profica does, just to go back again to memory lane with you.